Arcade Game Zone. I've reviewed quite a few of these types of games over the years. Game Party was one of my favorites on the Wii. Even Chuck E. Cheese party games wasn't bad if I remember right. However, I've had some issues finding good arcade simulators on the Switch. There was a very bad version of Carnival Games put out, and the very underwhelming title Party Arcade, which I reviewed a year ago. It wasn't until I started doing research for this review that I found this was made by the same people who make the instant sports games. It explains why this is so basic and forgettable. The controls were very awkward in some of the games, and actually a little annoying to use. Pool was the worst example of this. You would move the stick around like a clock, but when you got to the halfway point, you would need to change the direction that you're pressing to rotate the stick. It was very frustrating. I think the computer player had the same issue with the controls, because we took forever to finish one game. There are 10 main games to play: air hockey, table football, ball hop bowling, which was just skee ball, but I guess they didn't want to spend the money on the license for the real name, basketball, darts, pool, bowling, rail shooter, whack-a-mole, and NASCAR race? They licensed the name NASCAR? That had to be a pretty penny. Why not a generic name like slot car racing? I emailed the company asking them about this, but they haven't gotten back to me yet. I'll update in the comments if they do. The biggest issue with all these games is there's no point to them. I mean, there is no unlockables, tokens, or even tickets to get. You just play the games and move on. The fun of arcade games is to win prizes or to have some goal to achieve. The whole fun of playing ball hop bowling, whack-a-mole, or basketball is to play them for prizes. It's not a game you play for no reason. The lack of any endgame makes these games boring to play. There's even different levels of difficulty. It's all the same. Even the AI doesn't change as far as I can tell. Darts, bowling, and to a certain extent NASCAR race were the ones you could cheat the easiest in this title. It uses a power bar, and once you realize it follows the same path every time, it's easy to manipulate. The worst was bowling. I quickly figured out where I needed to stand to get a perfect game. Worse yet, this is a stripped down version of bowling. You only get one chance per frame to knock down the pins. Why not just have the real version of bowling? Even normal arcades have that. NASCAR race was all about knowing when to slow down, so you don't just jump off the track. Once you know those 3 or so spots, you can easily win this. Air hockey and table football were basically the same game, but table football had more stuff in the way, and it wasn't bad. These two were the only games I think would be fun to play with 2 people. It would get boring quick, but at least you would enjoy it for a few minutes. Rail shooter, though, I think had the best ideas in it. You would play as a person trying to destroy an alien attack force. You blow up the ships around you and eventually take on a boss. I can actually see this working in a real arcade, but once again, since there isn't anything at the end other than it being over, it might be interesting to play once, but after that the appeal is gone. Now, all these games can be played with 4 players, which was nice. Now, that's not actually all the games this has to offer. There's an entirely different section called Arcade Cabinet, which has 30 games in it. However, don't get too excited. They're just generic versions of arcade games you played before, like Snake, Space Invaders, Frogger, Bust-A-Move, Asteroids, and even Pong, as well as many others. They were okay. There isn't anything here worth replaying, but if you want to see their interpretations of better games, it'll give you something to do. However, this time you can only play it in single player. Arcade Zone was missing everything that made going to an arcade fun. The controls were not very good in quite a few of these games, and the lack of any reward to finishing them was very frustrating. I would just skip this. I just don't know why this exists. It's really not simulating an arcade. Honestly, there are better options in playing these types of games. For example, the instant sports titles are better than this, so I would just skip this.